Black woman arrested by corrupt cops. Then the highest-ranking NSA official walks into court. They say life can change in the blink of an eye. Sometimes it's a lucky break you never saw coming. Sometimes it's a nightmare that arrives with blaring sirens and flashing lights. This is the story of Olivia Grant, a brilliant black woman who found herself staring down a future of injustice after a humiliating arrest by corrupt cops. In an astonishing twist of fate, the highest-ranking official at the National Security Agency walked into the courtroom during her hearing, and that was only the beginning. The world would soon learn that the man everyone thought was there to rescue her was, in fact, her subordinate. Olivia Grant was the kind of person most people would describe as focused. She was 35, a confident black woman, and possessed an air of self-assured calm that could make an entire conference room fall silent when she stood to speak. Yet, despite her commanding presence at the podium or in high-level meetings, Olivia preferred to remain inconspicuous in her day-to-day life. She walked anonymously among crowds, rarely hinting at her extraordinary profession. After all, the best intelligence operatives often live behind the plainest of masks. That Tuesday morning was no different. Olivia woke up in her modest suburban home near Laurel, Maryland, close to NSA headquarters at Fort Meade, though few people realized what her proximity implied. She'd taken the day off to handle personal errands and planned to drive to a small neighboring county where she'd grown up, Prince George's County. On her schedule, a quick visit to a local community center to offer volunteer cybersecurity training for underprivileged kids. Olivia firmly believed in giving back. Her drive was peaceful at first. She sipped coffee from her thermos, listening to a local news radio station discussing new youth outreach programs. The roads were nearly empty. She thought about how she'd help the kids navigate the internet safely, how she'd show them the wonders of coding. She might have even offered a few tips about future career paths, though she'd never mentioned the NSA. She had a knack for keeping her personal role under wraps, but just as she turned onto a quieter stretch of road, she noticed a police cruiser tailing her. It switched lanes to follow her turn, then sped up to close the distance. A slight tingle of dread ran down her spine. She was used to traveling discreetly, and she'd done nothing that would attract attention. Still, the cruiser's red and blue lights flared to life. "Pull over," a stern voice crackled through the speaker. Olivia calmly complied. She pulled to the shoulder and turned off the ignition. The early spring sun was bright. A bead of sweat formed at her temple. Nothing triggers caution in a black motorist like unexpected police attention. She reminded herself to remain polite, keep both hands visible, and comply with standard requests. Olivia had done security briefings about these scenarios for colleagues and friends. Little did she know these particular cops had designs that went far beyond a routine traffic stop. "License and registration," the officer barked. His partner hovered near the rear window, one hand resting on the grip of his holstered firearm. Olivia took a calming breath. She offered a polite greeting and handed the officer her credentials. The badge on his chest read Officer David Talbot. His thick eyebrows furrowed when he glanced at her license. "Where you headed in such a hurry?" he asked. Olivia was doing maybe 2 miles above the speed limit, hardly a hurry. She clarified her speed, but the man's eyes narrowed suspiciously. He stepped away from the window and conferred with his partner, a silent, tall officer named Morales, who gave Olivia an occasional hostile glare. Sitting there, Olivia felt the tingle of something off. She'd studied enough behavioral patterns in her career to recognize that Officer Talbot didn't just suspect a traffic violation. He was fishing for something. His posture radiated aggression, the kind that extends far beyond standard policing. When Talbot returned, he asked Olivia to step out of the vehicle. She complied without protest. "Ma'am, you got anything illegal on you?" Talbot asked. Olivia's eyebrows rose. "No, officer," she replied, her tone measured. He patted her down in full view of passing traffic, ignoring the humiliating spectacle it created. Olivia felt the rush of shame, but also a spark of anger. She kept her composure. She was no stranger to injustice, though rarely had she been on the receiving end so blatantly. In the trunk, Olivia carried a small toolkit with a few spare electronics, cables, and a laptop for her demonstration at the community center. Officer Morales rummaged through them with an intensity that seemed inappropriate for a mere traffic stop. Then, as if on cue, Talbot made a dramatic show of discovering a suspicious plastic bag among her belongings. Olivia stared in disbelief. She'd never seen this bag of white powder in her life. "What's this?" Talbot demanded, waving the bag in her face. Olivia's shock was genuine, and it played right into their charade. Her mouth felt dry, but she managed to speak. "I have no idea. That's not mine." Morales smiled wryly, as if he'd expected that response. Her mind raced. This was an old trick: planting evidence, framing someone to meet a quota, or exploit a vulnerable motorist. Olivia knew that if she revealed who she truly was, it would blow open more questions than answers. But the risk of not revealing her identity seemed even greater. Right now, though, Olivia was so stunned she wasn't sure how to proceed. "You have the right to remain silent," Talbot recited, pulling her hands behind her back for the cuffs. That was the moment Olivia understood. This wasn't just a random stop gone awry. This was a deliberate setup. Why her? The question flared in her mind. Why would they pick her to plant drugs on? Olivia had spent her career analyzing threats and dissecting motives, yet never had she been as personally threatened as she was now. She was shoved into the backseat of the cruiser, her mind swirling with fear, anger, and a million questions. These police officers clearly thought they had an easy mark. A black woman alone on a country road. An easy statistic. An easy scapegoat. Or maybe an easy victim of a corrupt system. Little did they know how entirely they had miscalculated. The station was a small, worn-out building in a less traveled part of the county. As Talbot hauled Olivia out of the cruiser, a couple of other officers glanced over. No one seemed particularly surprised or concerned. It looked like business as usual. Olivia kept her eyes forward, her lips set in a tight line. She remembered every detail. If she could stay calm, she might find a moment to call someone. Maybe Robert Hastings, her closest colleague, and ironically, her direct subordinate at the NSA. However, Olivia had a strict professional code that discouraged sharing personal details outside essential channels. But in a moment like this, she could not fight alone. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed annoyingly. Talbot removed Olivia's cuffs only to force her to place her fingertips in black ink for booking. Then came the mugshot. She noticed the reflection of her face in the camera lens, stoic, worried but refusing to appear defeated. Morales hovered in the background, arms crossed. The entire station felt rancid with an undercurrent of corruption. Olivia could sense it in the casual jokes, the way the officers eyed her as if she were less than human. Then the desk sergeant, a stout man named Rawlings, typed up Olivia's information. He read the arresting officer's statement with a bored expression. Suspect found in possession of a controlled substance, resisted arrest. Olivia's jaw dropped at that second accusation. She had done nothing of the sort, but she bit her tongue. She needed a lawyer. And perhaps if push came to shove, she'd leverage her position at the NSA. But Olivia still wasn't sure if revealing her identity would fix or complicate matters. She wasn't exactly eager to blow her cover for a local corrupt precinct. Perhaps she could handle this the normal way, as a citizen with rights. Rawlings turned to Olivia. "You get one phone call." Olivia nodded gratefully, but the sergeant waved a disclaiming finger. "Only after processing. And it better be quick." She could tell from his tone he had no intention of making things easy. They shoved her into a holding cell with 3 other women, each hunched or pacing. The smell of stale sweat and the sour aftertaste of fear clung to the cinder block walls. Olivia kept to herself, choosing a corner. She tried to compose her thoughts, fight the swirl of outrage and confusion inside. How quickly her day had descended from calm routine into an absurd tragedy. Yet Olivia wasn't entirely powerless. She was resourceful in ways these crooked cops couldn't fathom. She studied them from behind the bars. Talbot and Morales had retreated to the station's main desk, likely congratulating themselves or forging a believable narrative. Olivia prayed for a moment alone with a phone. As soon as she got it, she would send a coded text to the one man she trusted enough to handle this quietly at first, Robert Hastings. But Olivia also knew there was a bigger question. Why had they targeted her? Was it truly random, or did someone know about her real position? As hours crept by, Olivia's mind spun with suspicion. In her line of work, coincidences rarely existed. Someone out there might have orchestrated a takedown, and if so, Olivia was inadvertently playing right into their trap. Eventually, she was pulled from the holding cell. Sergeant Rawlings handed Olivia a battered phone. "One call," he repeated grimly. Olivia nodded. She dialed the number with care. On the surface, it would appear to be a call to a friend or attorney. But Olivia's contact on the other end of the line was truly special. Robert Hastings answered on the second ring. "Hello?" His voice was level, calm, with a slight tension Olivia could detect. She recognized that tone. It was how he answered whenever someone unexpected called him on a possibly monitored line. "It's me," Olivia began. She made her voice sound shaky, as if she were simply distressed. I need help." There was a slight hesitation on the other end as Robert processed what was happening. He asked, "Where are you?" Olivia exhaled, choosing her words carefully. "Local station, in Prince George's County. They say I had something in my trunk, but we both know that's not right." She felt the sergeant's suspicious stare on her. She pressed on. "I need an attorney or some sort of help." She paused, letting the silence imply deeper meaning. Robert, infinitely perceptive, caught on. "I'll make a call," he assured. "Sit tight, Olivia." She hung up. A wave of relief coursed through her. If there was one person in the world who could unravel this, it was Robert Hastings. He was the deputy director of the NSA, a powerful man with vast resources, though Olivia remained above him in rank and authority, which was a carefully guarded secret known only within a tight inner circle. She'd never intended for him to come to her rescue in such a public fiasco, yet here they were. But Olivia knew how these things could escalate. If the station's corruption ran deep, they might try to block outside legal counsel or spin the story further. She realized a potential hailstorm was coming her way. The question wasn't whether help would arrive, but how quickly and whether Olivia could withstand the personal cost. If her identity were exposed, if the details of her job and her leadership over one of the most secretive intelligence arms in the nation came to light, the blowback would be enormous. Olivia's anonymity would be shattered. Her opponents, both foreign and domestic, would see an opening to exploit. Nonetheless, Olivia had little choice. She was in the den of wolves. She'd just lit the beacon for Robert to come. He would do everything in his power to protect her and keep her identity hidden, unless circumstances forced him to reveal the truth. The next day, Olivia was led in handcuffs to a cramped courtroom in the local judicial center. Her hearing was a preliminary one, meant to formally read the charges: possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute and resisting arrest. She felt a storm of disbelief at how quickly the system churned out these accusations, seemingly without any thorough investigation. Olivia was given a cheap public defender, an overworked older gentleman named Carl Bradshaw, who tried to reassure her but was visibly jaded from a lifetime of fighting losing battles in that county. Once inside, Olivia couldn't help scanning the room, searching for a sign of Robert or a legitimate attorney who might step in. The judge, a severe-faced woman named Patricia Desmond, strode into the courtroom in her black robes. She took her seat, and the bailiff called Olivia's case. With robotic efficiency, the state prosecutor read out Olivia's alleged crime. Olivia's heart hammered with each syllable. Across the aisle, Olivia spotted officers Talbot and Morales whispering to the prosecutor, exchanging smug glances. A wave of frustration and anger raged in Olivia's mind. She reminded herself to remain calm. Emotional outbursts could be twisted against her. The system thrived on that sort of sensational meltdown. Bradshaw stood, clearing his throat. Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty. We believe the substances recovered were planted and we request bail. The prosecutor scoffed. Your Honor, the officers have an airtight case. The suspect was found with a significant quantity of a controlled substance, and she resisted arrest. At that moment, Olivia had an overwhelming urge to speak out, but Bradshaw had strongly advised her to let him do the talking. She inhaled deeply, forcing her gaze to remain respectful. Just when the tension felt unbearable, the door at the back of the courtroom creaked open. A tall figure stepped inside. Olivia recognized him instantly. Robert Hastings. Dressed in a sharp navy blue suit, his posture straight, his face calm. He locked eyes with Olivia for a half-second. A subtle nod passed between them. He carried a leather briefcase, the kind used by high-end attorneys or influential government officials. The entire courtroom seemed to bristle with electric current at his arrival. Judge Desmond paused mid-sentence. Talbot and Morales glanced over their shoulders. No one knew who he was, but the intangible force of his presence made people uneasy. Robert made his way to the front. The bailiff stiffened but didn't protest. The judge peered over her glasses. Sir, do you have business here? He flashed a warm but authoritative smile. I do, Your Honor, he said, handing over a neatly typed piece of paper. I'm representing Miss Olivia Grant here. My name is Robert Hastings, from the firm Hastings & Hamilton. It was a half-truth. Robert had a legal degree, acquired long before he joined the intelligence community, but rarely practiced outside specialized NSA matters. Bradshaw's jaw dropped slightly, as did Olivia's, though she hid it better. She'd expected Robert to orchestrate help, not to step in personally. The judge read the document Robert provided, then glanced at Olivia with renewed curiosity. I see. Counselor Hastings, please proceed. Robert wasted no time. He addressed the bench with composure, calmly referencing Olivia's personal record. An esteemed citizen with no criminal history, as he put it. He pointed out inconsistencies in the officer's story. The prosecutor stiffened, unprepared to face such a cool, collected adversary. Watching Robert navigate the legal arena was mesmerizing. Olivia felt a burst of gratitude and a flicker of hope. Yet the real revelation was still to come. For now, Robert withheld Olivia's true position. He argued she was a private citizen, a professional with the means and integrity to appear for her trial. He requested that she be released on her own recognizance. Judge Desmond frowned, clearly conflicted, but Robert's persuasive presentation and Olivia's clean record tipped the scales. Finally, the judge nodded. Bail is set at a nominal fee, she decreed. Miss Grant, you are released with the condition that you surrender your passport and remain in the jurisdiction. Court is adjourned. A wave of relief flooded Olivia as the gavel struck. She shot Robert a discreet look. He gave her a reassuring nod. For the moment, the system's gears had slowed. But Olivia had a nagging feeling. Officer Talbot and Officer Morales wouldn't simply let this go. She was certain there was a deeper plot behind this fiasco, and she sensed it was about to unravel in dramatic ways. The ride away from the courthouse felt surreal. Olivia sat in the back seat of a sleek black sedan. Robert's driver had the radio off, granting them privacy. Robert sat beside Olivia, carefully scrolling through documents on a secure tablet. The tinted windows shielded them from the outside world, a cocoon of high-tech secrecy in an otherwise chaotic day. She turned to Robert, forcing a tense smile. I didn't expect you to come in person, Olivia began, relief and concern mingling in her voice. Robert shook his head. We couldn't risk letting this escalate. If that precinct is as dirty as I suspect, you are in real danger. His gaze flicked to her face. Are you all right? Olivia exhaled. I'm furious. They planted evidence, Robert. This was no random encounter. I can't imagine what or who is behind it, but someone tried to take me out of the picture. She rubbed her temples. Thank you for intervening. A flicker of guilt crossed Robert's features. I wish I'd known sooner. You shouldn't have endured that cell. I'm sorry. She appreciated his concern, But Olivia's mind was already leaping ahead. She was a strategic thinker. If someone orchestrated her downfall, it meant there was a reason. Could it have been her race, her anonymity, or a more insidious motive tied to her top-secret role at the NSA? As the sedan glided through traffic, Robert pulled up a digital file on the precinct. That station has a record of complaints. Excessive force, improper conduct, most never stick. The local administration is either turning a blind eye or is complicit. Olivia's jaw tightened. I want them fully investigated. But first, we need to handle the immediate charges. If I'm forced to reveal my real position in court, it'll become national news. She bit her lip. The blowback on the agency, our operations. She didn't finish. They both knew the ramifications could be catastrophic for ongoing intelligence missions worldwide. Robert nodded. We'll try to keep it quiet for now. But be warned, Olivia, these officers seem determined. They'll try to push their narrative. If the local system is that rotten, they might pull every trick in the book, including forging lab results on that bag of powder. Olivia clenched her fists. Let them try. The truth is on our side, and I'll call in every resource if I have to. The sedan approached Olivia's suburban home. She felt the tension lift slightly as she recognized her quiet neighborhood. But Olivia knew better than to assume she'd be safe. She turned to Robert. Come inside for a minute. Inside her living room, Olivia sank onto the sofa. Robert took a seat across from her, a laptop perched on his knees. We need a real lawyer who can fight this in local courts, Olivia said. No offense, Robert, you were brilliant, but you have full-time duties at the agency, and if you remain front and center, it risks exposing who I am. He nodded. I've already contacted the law firm of Simmons & Glass. They have a top-notch criminal defense team in Prince George's County. They'll be here in the morning. Olivia breathed a sigh of relief. Good. I want to clear my name through the proper channels, but if push comes to shove, I'll do whatever it takes to end this charade. Robert rose to leave, giving Olivia a gentle look. Get some rest, he advised. Tomorrow we start unraveling their corruption, piece by piece. He headed out and Olivia was alone. Her mind refused to quiet. She imagined the horrors of police brutality videos she'd seen over the years, the lost lives, the heartbreak. She'd always known she wasn't immune to that injustice just because of her unique job. But to be framed so blatantly, to face the threat of a future behind bars for a crime she didn't commit, it was a gut punch. Now she had a chance to fight back. She would do so not just for herself, but for anyone who'd been victimized by similar corruption. Next morning, Olivia woke early. She could barely sleep, replaying every second of the arrest. She needed answers. She retrieved her personal laptop, an innocuous device but with hidden secure compartments. She had the clearance and know-how to tap into certain databases to gather background intel on officers Talbot and Morales. She also wanted to see if they had ties to bigger fish. Her login triggered a series of secure protocols. Olivia typed in her credentials, then initiated a search through open-source data first, civil complaints, disciplinary actions, news articles. She discovered that Talbot had been accused of racial profiling multiple times. Charges were dropped or settled quietly. Morales had been involved in a suspicious shooting 2 years prior, but the grand jury didn't indict him. The pattern was consistent. These two officers had a knack for manufacturing probable cause, especially among minority drivers, and rarely faced consequences. Yet Olivia sensed something deeper. She dug into the property records around that precinct, discovered some unusual real estate transactions linked to an LLC. It was a shell company that Olivia suspected had ties to a local crime syndicate. She made a note to pass that lead to Robert or their intelligence resources. If these cops were on someone's payroll to keep the pipeline of false arrests going, Olivia had just found the tip of the iceberg. By mid-morning, the legal team from Simmons & Glass arrived. 2 lawyers, Danielle Glass and her junior partner, Troy Monroe. Danielle was a tall, polished woman in her 40s, known for aggressive defense strategies. She perched on Olivia's couch, flipping through Olivia's case file with a keen eye. "This is outrageous," Danielle muttered. I've seen my share of planted evidence, but usually they're more careful. It's like they wanted to make a statement. Troy chimed in. You sure you can't give us any more about your background? Anything that might explain why you'd be a target? Olivia hesitated. I work in cybersecurity for a government agency. That's as much as I can disclose for now. She used half-truths. She didn't want them to know she was effectively the boss of the NSA. That knowledge was on a strict need-to-know basis. I suspect it's not personal. They might have chosen me because I was an easy target, a black woman traveling alone. Danielle nodded, though Olivia saw a flicker of skepticism in her gaze. Well, we'll build a defense around the lack of any real evidence. We'll subpoena the body cam footage, if they even had them on. She paused. But if the system is as corrupt as rumored, we'll have to outmaneuver them. Olivia clenched her jaw. They won't get away with it. She locked eyes with Danielle. Whatever it takes, I want the truth exposed. Danielle gave a curt nod. We'll do everything we can. When the lawyers left, Olivia's phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Intel suggests a bigger operation behind that precinct. We'll explain later. Keep us posted. Olivia's chest tightened. She was right. There was more to this than a couple of dirty cops. She'd faced threats to national security before, but this was personal. And personal threats had a way of rattling even the most seasoned professional. Over the next week, Olivia did her best to resume a semblance of normalcy. She worked from home, coordinating with Robert and a few trusted NSA colleagues via secure channels. They discovered that certain local officials in Prince George's County had connections to that suspicious LLC Olivia had found. The money trail hinted at drug trafficking, real estate scams, and possibly even stolen data sold on the dark web. If Olivia's hunch was correct, officers Talbot and Morales could be part of a broader web, using traffic stops to intimidate or recruit couriers. Or, in Olivia's case, to forcibly remove troublemakers who stumbled too close to the truth. The question remained, why Olivia specifically? She was sure it wasn't random. Maybe a routine license plate scan turned up her name flagged in certain systems, indicating she was no ordinary citizen. Perhaps the criminals behind the scenes wanted to undermine her before she stumbled upon something bigger. Her day in court loomed. Danielle Glass had filed motions to dismiss, but they were denied. The prosecutor, a weasel-like man named Harold Minton, insisted the evidence was strong. Olivia's frustration boiled. She wanted to scream from the rooftops about her innocence. Yet she had to keep her official identity under wraps. She'd placed her trust in the legal system to some degree, but that trust was waning fast. One evening, Olivia was typing up a brief summary of her ordeal for Robert when the doorbell rang. She tensed. Unannounced visitors were rare. She checked her security camera feed. Standing at her doorstep was a young boy, maybe 15 or 16, wearing a hoodie, shifting anxiously. Olivia, her instincts on high alert, opened the door slightly. Miss Grant?" the boy asked, eyes darting around. "I'm Damon, from the community center. You were supposed to teach a class last week." Olivia's heart softened. She vaguely recalled the name. Damon was one of the bright kids she'd intended to help with cybersecurity. "Damon, right? Is everything okay?" He handed her a flash drive, glancing over his shoulder. "I found this. In the center's old laptop stash. It had your name on a note, sort of." He swallowed nervously. "I think you should see it." Olivia's eyebrows knitted. "Who gave this to you?" "Nobody. I was rummaging for an extra charger, and I found an envelope with EG written on it taped under a desk. It looked important. I got your address from the sign-up sheet." She motioned for him to come inside. He hesitated, glancing around again, then followed. Olivia led him to her living room. Damon's posture screamed anxious fear. Olivia offered him water. "Thanks for bringing this. Did anyone else see you?" He shook his head. "No, ma'am. I'm real careful. I'm into hacking too, but like just for good stuff. I'm not sure what's on that drive, but something told me it wasn't safe just lying around." Olivia inserted the flash drive into her secure laptop, scanning for viruses or Trojans. None found. Inside was a single folder labeled Watch your back. Olivia's heart hammered. She opened it and found a series of photos. Olivia on her usual route to the community center. Olivia stepping out of her car at a coffee shop. Olivia walking down a sidewalk. A chill rippled down her spine. Someone had been surveilling her long before the traffic stop. There was also a text file containing a cryptic message. The cops are the least of your worries. They're just pawns. Someone is coming for you and your secrets. Olivia felt her blood run cold. Damon peered over her shoulder. What does it mean? She quickly closed the file. It means I need to be careful, she whispered, turning to Damon. She gave him a reassuring smile. I appreciate your bravery bringing this to me. From now on, stay out of trouble. If you see anything suspicious, call me immediately. He nodded. Yes, ma'am, he said, voice trembling. Olivia walked him to the door, ensuring no one lurked outside. When the boy was gone, Olivia locked up, her mind in overdrive. This was bigger than a simple frame job. Someone out there knew Olivia's true identity, or at least suspected she had secrets worth protecting. The arrest might have been a test run to see how she'd react, or it could have been a strategic move to keep her busy with legal troubles while they advanced some sinister agenda. Olivia's phone buzzed. Another text from Robert. We need to talk. Urgent. Olivia typed a quick reply. I have intel too. Let's meet. The storm was gathering. Olivia braced for the inevitable clash. She wouldn't be a victim. She'd already decided that. She was Olivia Grant, commanding respect in the halls of intelligence. It was high time the criminals in her hometown realized they'd targeted the wrong woman. They met later that night in a secure location, a parking garage in downtown D.C., a place the NSA sometimes used for clandestine rendezvous. The concrete walls loomed, the hum of traffic echoing overhead. Robert stood by his car, arms folded, scanning the environment for eavesdroppers. Olivia approached swiftly. Any watchers? Olivia asked quietly. Not that I can see. I did a sweep. They stepped behind a pillar. Olivia handed Robert a copy of the flash drive's contents. She briefed him in hushed tones. Robert's expression darkened. Someone's been surveilling you for weeks, possibly months. They knew your routine, your volunteer schedule. Any idea who? Olivia asked. Robert rubbed his chin. We've picked up chatter about a rogue network operating near D.C. They specialize in blackmail, data theft, and infiltration of local law enforcement. It's possible they discovered you're not just a regular cybersecurity consultant. They might not know everything, but enough to realize you're a threat. Olivia let out a slow breath. And they used these crooked cops as foot soldiers to neutralize me. Robert nodded gravely. That's my theory. The cops might not even realize who they're truly serving. They're being paid under the table, fed certain targets. Or maybe they suspect more, but they're greedy enough not to care. Olivia bristled with anger. I won't let them tarnish my record or drag me through court on false charges. And if they're part of a bigger threat to national security, I want them dismantled. Robert placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. Agreed. But we must be strategic. If we blow your cover as director of the NSA, we risk exposing critical operations. However, we could apply pressure behind the scenes. We could get the FBI involved, or we could quietly pass evidence to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Olivia's eyes narrowed. She wanted immediate justice, but also understood the delicate balance. The last thing we need is a media frenzy. But I'm not going to prison over this. Let's gather irrefutable proof, then spring the trap. Robert gave a determined nod. We've already assigned a covert NSA team to investigate. They'll gather digital footprints, financial records, any communication logs that link the precinct to this rogue network. Once we have enough evidence, we'll lower the boom. Her thoughts raced. But my next court date is in 3 days. If the judge sees no progress, the prosecution might ramp up pressure or push for a plea deal. I won't accept that, Robert thought carefully. Then we'll accelerate our timeline. If everything goes well, we'll have enough to exonerate you and expose the corrupt ring in one sweeping move. Olivia stared into the dimly lit garage. This was bigger than her personal freedom. By protecting her life and identity, they'd also protect countless intelligence operations. The same day Olivia was forced to stand on the defensive in a local courtroom, she might end up toppling a criminal conspiracy from the inside. The stakes couldn't be higher. "Let's do it," she said, her voice firm. Robert gave her a reassuring half-smile. "And Olivia? Watch your back. These people won't hesitate to escalate." She nodded, recalling the message on that drive. They'd singled her out, left a warning. But Olivia Grant was no ordinary target. She was about to show them exactly what it meant to cross the highest-ranking woman in the NSA. The day arrived, gray clouds looming over the courthouse as though nature itself reflected Olivia's anxiety. The courthouse halls bustled with attorneys, defendants, and clerks. Security officers scanned Olivia's bag, giving her lingering looks as if recalling the sensational rumor that she was the drug-dealing hacker from last week. Danielle Glass walked beside Olivia, posture erect, hair pulled back, exuding confidence. Troy Monroe trailed them, sorting documents, whispering updates about the prosecution's new claims. "They're doubling down," Troy muttered. "They want the maximum sentence if you're convicted. They'll allege you were running some kind of distribution network." Olivia's jaw clenched. Absurd. They passed Officer Talbot and Morales in the hallway. The two men stared Olivia down, wearing smug half-smiles. She matched their gaze with quiet fury. Neither side spoke, but the tension crackled in the stale courthouse air. Inside the courtroom, Olivia took her seat at the defense table. She scanned the gallery, searching for Robert. He wasn't there. That was expected. He had to coordinate with the covert team. But Olivia still felt a pang of apprehension. She needed him. She needed the evidence he'd promised. The judge entered. The bailiff called the session to order, and the prosecutor Minton stood to lay out the charges again. He painted Olivia as a dangerous manipulator with a knack for technology. Olivia clenched her fists under the table. If they only knew the real scope of her technology skills. Danielle calmly waited for Minton to finish, then rose. "Your Honor, we have evidence proving the arresting officers have a documented history of misconduct. In addition, we have strong reason to believe the alleged contraband was planted." Danielle presented official complaints and limited body cam footage, which showed suspicious gaps. "We request that all charges be dropped immediately." Judge Desmond scrutinized the body cam footage. It was heavily redacted, conveniently missing the moment Talbot claimed to find the drugs. The judge looked at Minton. "Why is this footage incomplete?" Minton hesitated. "There were technical errors, Your Honor. The cameras malfunctioned, but the officer's testimony is consistent, and they have no reason to fabricate evidence." At that moment, Olivia's phone, set to silent, vibrated in her purse. She glanced down discreetly, glimpsing a message from Robert. Showtime. Her pulse quickened. She knew something big was about to happen. The judge continued. "Counselor Glass, while I find these omissions troubling, the court has not seen definitive proof of your client's innocence. I will allow the prosecution to proceed." Danielle started to object, but the judge raised a hand. "Your motion to dismiss is denied. We move forward with the pre-trial hearing. Prosecution, call your first witness." Officer Talbot swaggered to the stand, glancing at Olivia with a sneer. Olivia struggled to maintain her composure. This was the man who'd orchestrated her humiliation. She listened to his perjured statements with quiet fury, how Olivia allegedly drove erratically, refused to step out, verbally abused him. The lies piled up. Danielle cross-examined him, poking holes in his story. She confronted him about previous complaints of racial profiling. He dismissed them as misunderstandings. Olivia noticed the judge's skepticism. Perhaps Desmond wasn't entirely blind to the possibility of corruption. Just as Talbot stepped down, the courtroom doors swung open. Heads turned. In strode Robert Hastings, flanked by two well-dressed individuals Olivia recognized as high-level Department of Justice attorneys. Another man followed behind them, a broad-shouldered figure Olivia knew from the agency's internal security team. The entire room seemed to shift in their presence. Judge Desmond's eyebrows rose. The prosecutor sputtered in confusion. Robert approached Danielle and quietly whispered something. The lawyer's face lit with surprise. Judge Desmond tapped her gavel. "Sir, may I ask what is going on here?" Robert offered a polite bow of his head. "Your Honor, my name is Robert Hastings. I'm here with new evidence critical to Miss Grant's case." He handed the judge a neatly bound folder and several USB drives. "We ask permission to present it immediately." The prosecutor objected, but the judge's curiosity was piqued. She signaled them to proceed. Robert turned to Olivia, giving her a reassuring nod. Then, with meticulous poise, he addressed the court. "We have uncovered extensive proof that the contraband in question was planted. Furthermore, we have discovered that officers David Talbot and Anthony Morales are part of a larger corruption ring tied to an organized crime network." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Minton tried to shout objections, but the judge silenced him. Robert went on, detailing financial records showing monthly deposits into the officers' accounts from the same LLC Olivia had identified. He displayed screenshots of text messages where the officers discussed framing motorists. The evidence was damning. Tension soared. Morales jumped to his feet, shouting that it was all fabricated. The bailiff moved to restrain him. Talbot's face turned ashen. Olivia's heart pounded with a mixture of relief and burning anger. The truth was finally out in the open. Then came the final blow. Robert revealed a short clip of unredacted body cam footage, gleaned from a hidden second camera. In it, Morales could be seen slipping a plastic bag into Olivia's trunk, while Talbot distracted her. The entire courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Olivia exhaled in vindication. There it was, undeniable proof she'd been framed. The judge's voice trembled with fury. She demanded order, banging her gavel. "Officers, you will surrender yourselves into custody pending further investigation," Judge Desmond said. Talbot tried to protest, but the bailiff cuffed him. Morales cursed, glaring at Olivia. Olivia stared back, unflinching. The prosecutor sagged, deflated. He offered a half-hearted apology to the court, blaming the officers for misleading him. Olivia wanted to laugh at his cowardice, but she kept her dignity intact. Judge Desmond turned to Olivia. "Miss Grant, the court hereby dismisses all charges against you. You are free to go. I apologize for the injustice you have endured." Relief washed over Olivia. She glanced at Robert, who gave a discreet nod. But the next words from the judge took Olivia and the entire courtroom by surprise. "Mr. Hastings, you mentioned you work closely with Miss Grant. May I ask in what capacity?" The hush in the courtroom was absolute. This was the moment Olivia feared. Robert hesitated, then turned to Olivia, seeking guidance in his eyes. Olivia stood up, stepping forward, quiet authority radiating from her. Her voice, though calm, resonated with finality. "Your Honor, Mr. Hastings is my subordinate at the National Security Agency. I am his superior." The reaction was instantaneous. A wave of gasps, stunned murmurs. The judge's eyes widened. Minton nearly choked on his own breath. Danielle Glass's mouth fell open. The reporters present scrambled to capture every word. Olivia's anonymity just took a serious hit, but in that charged second, none of it mattered. She wanted the truth out, to reclaim her dignity and destroy the veneer of power those crooked officers had dared to wield. It was a moment that would go down in the annals of that county's history. The highest-ranking NSA official wasn't the man who walked in with the evidence. No. He was outranked by the very woman they had dared to frame. The real storm was only beginning. In the days that followed, the local news exploded with the story. Headlines screamed, "Black woman framed by corrupt cops, secretly top NSA official." Olivia's photo plastered the news channels, her carefully maintained anonymity shredded. Analysts speculated what her exact position was at the NSA. The official line from the agency was cagey, neither confirming nor denying. Yet the phrase, highest-ranking woman in the NSA, circulated, fueling sensational debates. Public opinion was firmly on Olivia's side. She received messages of support from civil rights organizations, from ordinary citizens outraged by the brazen corruption. The county's police chief quickly resigned under pressure, proclaiming ignorance. The mayor announced a broad internal investigation of the entire police department. Officers Talbot and Morales faced federal charges for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and more. Their fall from power was swift and merciless. Olivia found herself thrust into an uncomfortably bright spotlight. She addressed the press only once, releasing a short statement. "I am grateful that justice prevailed. I hope this case serves as a reminder that no one is above the law, and no one is beneath its protection." Privately, Olivia was still processing the magnitude of the betrayal and the sudden exposure of her identity. But she refused to be cowed by it. The bigger fish, the rogue network funding the cops, didn't escape scrutiny. Thanks to the NSA team's deep dive, the FBI launched several raids. Key figures were arrested, and Olivia's intelligence proved invaluable in dismantling a dangerous syndicate. The impact was massive: stolen data seized, drug shipments intercepted, and a pipeline of bribery laid bare. Olivia took private satisfaction in knowing that those who had tried to orchestrate her downfall had instead unleashed their own destruction. But Olivia also knew she couldn't return to her old life of anonymity. She met with Robert in a secure conference room at NSA headquarters, a hush settling around them as they discussed the next steps. Olivia suspected the agency's higher-ups might be uneasy that her name was now a public point of interest. Indeed, the Director of National Intelligence had already expressed concern over Olivia's forced reveal. "It was bound to happen eventually," Olivia said softly, glancing at Robert. "Given the nature of our work, I always knew a moment might come when I'd have to step into the light." Robert nodded, empathy in his eyes. "And you did it with grace. You turned a travesty into an example of justice. The country honestly is admiring you right now." Olivia offered a wan smile. "Admiration or not, I'll need to keep pushing for reforms. The corruption in that county wasn't an isolated incident. This is a chance to catalyze change." Robert studied her, a proud glimmer in his gaze. "What will you do next?" Olivia leaned back, letting her eyes roam over the high-tech displays around them. "I'll do my job, protect national security, but I also want to use my voice to speak against abuses of authority. Starting with the local level, then wherever else the fight leads me." It was a new chapter in Olivia's life. Freed from the false charges, she was also freed from hiding in the shadows. And though she'd never sought the limelight, she wouldn't squander the opportunity to make a difference. Talbot and Morales sat in a stark interrogation room. Gone were their uniforms, replaced by orange jumpsuits. Their lawyer was a pale, sweating man who informed them the FBI had evidence that could bury them. The officers' smirks had vanished. Their entire world collapsed, and now they begged for plea deals. The local community they once terrorized rejoiced in their downfall. More arrests followed. Corrupt city officials, shady real estate brokers, middlemen who laundered dirty money. Each new indictment signaled the slow but inevitable unraveling of the conspiracy. Victims of these predatory practices, people who had served jail time on trumped-up charges, came forward to share their stories, fueling public outrage. Class action lawsuits stacked up against the county. For Olivia, witnessing the karmic reckoning was both gratifying and sobering. The scale of injustice was bigger than she'd realized. She recalled sitting in that holding cell, fear swirling in her gut. If she, a top intelligence official, could be treated that way, what chance did others have? Yet Olivia also recognized a sliver of hope. With the corruption laid bare, the community stood a chance to rebuild. New leadership in the police force, new accountability measures, real, meaningful reform. And Olivia intended to watch it closely. She had the power and connections to make sure no one conveniently swept the issues under the rug. In time, Olivia found a sense of closure. She revisited the community center, determined to fulfill the promise she'd made to Damon and the other kids. The staff welcomed her with a standing ovation, grateful for her perseverance. Olivia set up a permanent program offering free cybersecurity and coding classes. She funded it herself, ensuring the youth would have a safe environment to learn and thrive. One evening, After helping Damon debug a tricky coding project, Olivia stepped outside into the cool dusk. She gazed at the street where she'd once been arrested. Instead of haunting her, the memory fueled her resolve. Life had tested her. Corrupt cops had tried to break her, but in the end they'd broken themselves on the anvil of truth. Back at NSA headquarters, Olivia's office was perched high on a secure floor, a glass window overlooking the Maryland landscape. She could see the horizon line dotted with trees and roads leading away from Fort Meade. Olivia swiveled her chair, letting her eyes rest on the setting sun. She thought about the young Olivia she once was, growing up in a tough neighborhood, devouring books on technology, dreaming of a future in which she could make a difference. She recalled mentors who told her she could change the world, if she only dared. And now here she sat, leading one of the most formidable intelligence agencies on the planet. A soft knock on her door broke her reverie. Robert stepped in. "Got a minute?" "Always," Olivia said, gesturing for him to have a seat. He perched on the edge of a chair. "The dust is settling. The Director of National Intelligence wants to meet with you about the public image fallout, but I have a feeling they'll frame it as wanting to celebrate your courage." He made air quotes. Olivia sighed. "I'll handle it. They'll want to spin it. I just hope it leads to real dialogue about abuses of power, not just lip service." Robert nodded. "Also, you have invitations to speak at several law enforcement conferences. Seems they want your perspective on integrity and reform." He offered a half smile. "You're in high demand." Olivia shook her head, a wry grin forming. "Funny how the system that nearly devoured me now wants my spotlight, but if it helps fix cracks in policing, I'll do it." They exchanged a knowing glance. Olivia had always believed in the importance of oversight and checks on power. Her entire career at the NSA was a delicate balance of national security versus civil liberties. Her personal ordeal with corrupt local police only underscored how urgent and universal that struggle was. Robert stood to leave, then paused. "Before I forget, some of the younger agents saw the footage of you in court, the moment you revealed your role. They said it gave them goosebumps." Olivia laughed softly. "Is that so? Word is they're calling you the hidden lioness of the NSA. Don't ask me who started it." Robert's grin widened. Olivia rolled her eyes with amusement. "That's certainly dramatic." He shrugged. "It fits. You stayed hidden, but when cornered, you roared." Though Olivia's charges were dismissed, the court required her presence for the sentencing phase of Talbot and Morales. She didn't have to attend, but Olivia wanted to witness the end of their reign. Cameras flocked outside the courthouse. Olivia navigated them with measured calm, ignoring reporters' shouted questions. Inside, the judge, this time a different one given the criminal nature of the case, read the list of offenses. The sentencing was severe, a combined total of decades behind bars. The officers, no longer cocky, looked pale and shaken. Olivia watched them, feeling neither pity nor revenge. She simply felt relief. Their downfall was their own doing. When the gavel struck, Olivia stepped into the aisle. Talbot's eyes locked with hers momentarily, a swirl of regret and anger in his gaze. She couldn't read his exact emotion, nor did she want to. In Olivia's mind, justice was done. Hard karma had indeed come back around, swift and unyielding. As she exited the courtroom, Olivia found a quiet hallway to gather her thoughts. She inhaled, then exhaled slowly. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind. She was no longer simply Olivia Grant in the eyes of the public. She was Olivia Grant, the formidable NSA official who took on a corrupt system and won. She'd pay a price for that notoriety, but she accepted it. If her story could help rectify systemic wrongs, then the cost was worth it. Later that evening, Olivia convened a private meeting at the community center. She was greeted by applause from local residents and activists. They wanted to hear about next steps, how to ensure such corruption never again took root. Olivia stood before them, less as an NSA authority and more as a concerned citizen. She spoke passionately about accountability, the importance of vigilance, and the power of unified communities. "It's not just about punishing bad officers," Olivia said. It's about building a culture of integrity in law enforcement. We need systems that protect good officers and remove bad ones. We need transparent oversight, citizen review boards, body cameras that actually function. This case was a wake-up call. The crowd nodded in agreement. People asked questions, shared personal experiences with the justice system. Olivia listened intently, making notes, promising to connect them with resources. In that humble room, Olivia felt more certain than ever. Her life's mission had expanded beyond national security. She was now fighting for security at home, too. Economic security, social justice, the bedrock of trust between communities and their protectors. Robert showed up near the end, quietly watching from the back. After the meeting concluded, Olivia approached him. "Thanks for coming," she said softly. He smiled. Couldn't miss it. That was inspiring. She shrugged slightly. "It's just the start. There's so much to fix." He nodded. "One step at a time. But if anyone can drive change, it's you." His tone carried a deep admiration, a faith in her leadership. Weeks rolled into months. Headlines moved on, new stories capturing the public's attention. But in Prince George's County, the echoes of Olivia's case lingered. The new police chief began a top-down overhaul. Training programs emphasized de-escalation and community engagement. Oversight committees gained real power. People who once felt hopeless now had a spark of belief in justice. Meanwhile, Olivia continued her high-stakes work at the NSA. She oversaw complex cyber operations, collaborated with global partners to thwart threats, and steered the agency with relentless dedication. Yet she also maintained her ties to the local community. She donated funds, spoke at gatherings, mentored youth who aspired to shape the future. Olivia had become a symbol of resilience, an unexpected champion who bridged the highest echelons of power and the grassroots fight for equality. Late one night, Olivia sat at her desk finishing up a classified briefing. She scrolled through the final pages, then glanced at a framed photo perched near her keyboard. It was a snapshot from a recent volunteer event. Olivia flanked by Damon and other bright young students. They beamed at the camera, the promise of their futures shining in their eyes. Olivia couldn't help smiling. She'd seen so much darkness, confronted so many threats, but looking at those kids, she felt the enduring light of hope. She closed the file, powered down the computer. Outside the window, a waxing moon glowed over the campus of Fort Meade. Olivia allowed herself one last moment of reflection. Life had thrown her a crisis she never anticipated. Arrest by corrupt cops, a humiliating ordeal. But she emerged stronger, her spirit tempered by the flames of injustice. The very system that tried to crush her had been reformed by the truth she refused to hide. No matter where she went from there, whether continuing her hush-hush intelligence work or stepping publicly into the ring of social justice, Olivia Grant knew she had already made an indelible mark on her world, and she was only getting started. Thank you for journeying with us through the incredible, true-to-life story of Olivia Grant, the resilient black woman who stood her ground against a broken system and emerged as a powerful advocate for justice. From that harrowing traffic stop to the bombshell courtroom showdown, Olivia's refusal to be silenced brought swift karma to the corrupt officers who dared to frame her. In the process, she forever changed an entire community's relationship with law enforcement and exposed a deeper conspiracy that threatened national security. If this story of triumph over adversity, injustice, and secrecy resonated with you, let's keep the conversation going. Help us shine a brighter light on truth and accountability by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to our channel. Let Olivia Grant's story inspire you to stand up, speak out, and believe that change, even in the face of corruption, is possible.